Hello and welcome to DF Retro Super Show, episode 11. I'm John Lindemann, and today we're here to talk about all things retro and, well, awesome. A lot of great stuff to get to today, and today is a special show because we're actually taking questions from our wonderful patrons over on the Digital Foundry Discord. So yes, if you check out our Patreon, you'll find the tier for DF Retro, and here you can join and submit questions and come hang out with us on the Discord. And when I say us, I'm talking about the crew behind DF Retro, two of which are joining me here today. So first of all, as usual, the man himself, Corey Carlson.
Hey, how's it going? Good to be back, ready to answer some questions. You know, I was thinking about this being episode 11. We're answering questions from the patrons, and this is almost like the MMO of the show. So it kind of goes in line with Final Fantasy 11.
It's a little bit of a reach, but I'll tell you who's not reaching. It's the man with the most Riz on the internet, Marc Triforce Duddleson.
I'm really surprised that Corey was the one that reached for the Final Fantasy 11 reference and not me. By the way, you can see that my background is a little bit different. I've got furniture in the background all in random places, but I'm kind of rearranging my retro room and moving my office into the retro room. So it's a process. This background should look pretty cool in future episodes, but yeah, it's a little bit unfinished at the moment, but I'm excited about this rearranging. It's pretty cool.
If you're listening on audio, of course, just imagine lots of wood grain in the background, and you have an idea of where Marc is at. So, gentlemen, there's some cool stuff to talk about. I've gone through the question. I've posted them here. There's actually a lot of great questions in here, and some stuff that I think a lot of people will enjoy hearing our take on, hopefully. But before we get to the questions and answers, we got to do a little thing called news/what we've been playing. First up this week, something I wanted to share. I just caught wind of this. There's a new Mega Drive game and controller combo being developed right now, and there's a Kickstarter that went live for it. And it's called Popcorn Duel plus Spinner.
Yeah,
this
I'm
comes
looking at it now.
From Frederick Reynal. Do you guys know this name?
No, I don't.
I do not, but based on this trailer, it looks like he worked on Alone in the Dark, among other things.
Oh.
That's right. He was a pioneer, a French developer who helped and created basically the original Alone in the Dark. He also created the Little Big Adventure games with the Twinsen get titles.
Yeah, okay.
Right? You know that, Marc.
You showed it to me.
Absolutely. He worked on Toy Commander and Dreamcast and various other titles over the years, right? So he's done some really cool stuff. And the thing is, though, is he got his start way back before that in the 80s on a game called Popcorn for the PC, I believe. There may have been other ports of it, but the one I've seen is, and it actually, I think it comes with the Little Big Adventure 2 PC version in Europe, at least, as you can actually get it included. It's like a CGA breakout-ish style game, if you will, with some unique changes. So what they're doing here, though, is they're developing a new cartridge for the Mega Drive with 3 games on it. It's got the original Popcorn, sort of like reimagined on the Mega Drive / Genesis with CGA style palette. It's got a new 2026 version of the game that's been remade for the system. But it's Popcorn Duel that catches my eye the most, because this is a 2-player game that, based on the footage they're showing, it's pretty much Windjammers, but with it's like Breakout meets Windjammers, and it looks awesome.
That sounds really good to me.
Yeah,
right.
I like these controllers.
Exactly, and that's what really stands out is they want to ship it, and he shows like a box idea of where you buy it. It comes with the cartridge and 2 controllers in the box that are made from the ground up for the Mega Drive. And it's actually like proper spinner controllers, which are just so awesome. I love those types of controllers. I, of course, have one of the custom ones for the Jaguars for playing Tempest. Um,
I wonder if you could use that controller as a spare controller for Atari or ColecoVision because they use, the same controller port as Genesis slash Mega Drive.
I do not know. I have no idea about this. But either way, I think this is very, very cool. And currently, as we record this, there's 32 days to go. They got about 25,000 euros of funding out of a total of 60,000 needed for the goal. I wanted to highlight it here because I would like this to succeed because I would like to own this because it looks awesome. So yeah,
Is it come with
good.
2 controllers? It looks like.
It looks like it does indeed. I guess there's a version that there's different tiers. There's just like the game. There's a 1 controller version. There's a 2 controller version. They sell different bundles and different levels. So I really like what they showed of the 2 controller package. They kind of just slot in there next to the game. Very, very cool.
I always wonder how these things kind of come together. How he decided, hey, I want to kickstart this. This game that I have not worked on in so long. I have this crazy idea. I think it's interesting that he can just, that something like this can still be made.
Absolutely. Man, I love to see it. And I've been big fan of his works over the years. So that's really cool to see him back and doing something like this and kind of returning to the roots. And as we know, the Mega Drive has been fertile ground for brand new games, right?
Yeah.
So it's great. That system
Yeah.
is so alive and I love it. The next thing on the list here is actually something I don't know anything about, so you guys are gonna have to walk me through it. You've written Retrotap by Kytor has been announced. What is the Retrotap?
Yeah, so Kytor, who he makes various products, has also recently, in the past year, taken over the Retro Access company, and now produces good quality SCART cables for shipping out of North America. But he's considered to be a really strong electrical engineer with lots of you can count on his engineering to not cause problems is his reputation. And he was actually, funny enough, inspired by a video that Coury made a year or two ago, uh, where Coury showed how you could use the PS2 Slim power adapter, which there are a few versions of that, and some are considered not that good, but most are considered like actually among the best quality like power supplies ever made. And Coury showed like how even someone who's not like a big modder like he or I are, that you can make these adapters to you have to be really careful about it, for polarity and all that, but make all of these adapters to power basically any wall wart console through one adapter. And so what the Retrotap is it's kind of a box and like a smoke black shell, and it's got like all of these different polarity and different sized barrel plugs on it, and you can use it with either a PS2 Slim power adapter or other like high quality adapters that are sold today, like some of the ones by Triad and stuff like that that are really well regarded in the retro community. So basically, yeah, it's not a power supply itself, but it is a means for distributing that to multiple consoles using one brick. And as someone who is currently kind of redoing their retro and office setup, I'm very excited about this. It should be releasing later this year.
Yes, I think it said July is when it might be out, or shipping at least.
I found the link for it on the shop. This looks amazing. I have seen this before. I absolutely want this. Obviously, you can kind of see if you're watching the video down here, I've got a lot of consoles hooked up, and you guys know very well how messy all those AC adapters get. It
Oh yeah,
sucks.
oh yeah.
So
Well,
being able to route them all through this little box would be a game changer.
And then you just have the
I've kind of felt like
distributed
I've been
from
a
there.
fool for sticking to wall warts for so long, but to be honest, I'm still getting like my OEM, NES and Super Nintendo and Genesis and PC Engine wall warts are I'm not getting like a lot of bad video noise or anything like that caused by them, but it probably is about time to move on to modern solutions. But there are a lot of bad ones out there, so for considering the source that this is coming from, I'm extremely optimistic and confident in this one. It feels like the right time for me to finally move away from that. I mean, Coury moved away from the wall warts several years ago.
Yeah, I would go crazy if I had to manage all those wall warts now. And getting that PS2 adapter and being able to, basically power all of my retro consoles with it has been insanely convenient. Even though I do have to pay attention to, polarity reversal and stuff like that and barrel sized. Once I figured out what I needed to do, it was pretty easy. So I'm looking forward to it too. It's going to cut down on the amount of wires and splitters that I have, because I use a lot of, barrel splitters. And the key is that you don't want to turn on more than one system at a time, because why would you even want to do that anyways, unless you're switching between capture sources or something. But I don't know if this will have protection for something like that, if it just, cuts off one of them, if another one turns on.
Yeah, I want to say he said something along the lines of, in theory, that you could maybe turn on 3 or 4, but probably not the best idea. You probably ideal to avoid it. But the nice thing about this versus your like kind of homebrew solution of using the PS2 Slim adapter is that it's like this pre-prepared thing that will have instructions and a chart that will be able to show you like what goes where and how to use it safely. I'm sure over the years you could easily forget, like, oh great, what did this adapter do, what did this do, what is this supposed to plug into. This is just a prepackaged thing that will be very clear. I wanted to say he said you might have to be careful about PC Engine, because I think it's
I think it's the Super Graphics is the one.
Oh,
but the thing is,
okay.
I power my Super Graphics with mine, and it's not a problem. So
yeah, but there's some member of the PC Engine family I think that you do need to be careful on, because it's like a different polarity, but it's also the same size as like a NES or Famicom barrel. But anyway,
the Super
Definitely.
Graphics
Those
one
hex
is really
bolts
is pretty
tighten
big.
on your Super Graphics there, Coury.
Yeah, right. The totally
that-
unnecessary plastic molded hex bolts.
I
Love 'em.
freaking love it, man. Yeah, no, I'm totally into this. I still use wall warts like you try, but I actually use modern versions because since I moved to Europe, and I have like the high, like, what is it, like the triple head one for the or the Genesis 32X Sega CD combo, the double one for just the Sega CD and Model 1 system, that kind of stuff.
And that's something that you can do with this Retrotap he
With this
showed.
too.
You can
Yeah,
do the
yeah,
Tower
yeah.
of Power in addition to all your other wall wart consoles.
Right. Yeah.
I have made the mistake a couple times by accidentally plugging American power supplies into European power, though. Happened twice that I blew them up.
Oh.
And it only
Does it
blew
just
up
like blow the fuse, or does it do something else?
It blew up the power supplies in both
just
cases.
the
I
power
got-
Oh,
supply.
geez.
The system,
Yeah,
the console
yeah,
was safe.
Oh,
Okay.
basically, a lot of caps exploded on the board. It's actually
Oh.
salvageable. It was just capacitors exploded and smelled awful.
Yeah.
But
It's got to be the
that's
worst
it.
feeling when something like that
Yeah.
happens, though. It's like,
Because you
oh,
don't
man.
realize when you do it, you're just not thinking, and you just plug something
Yeah.
in, and it's just like, oh, wait, and it's too late.
Yep. Each one of these can distribute to 10 systems, I believe. For $60, I think the price is that's on the webpage.
One system it can't power, however, is the Evercade Nexus, which was just announced today, right before we recorded this, and it looks pretty cool. So the Evercade is this little system platform from Blaze that I've been pretty impressed with, given what they've been able to do with it. Essentially, they've made a cartridge-based system that plays both. More than both, it plays emulated classics. It plays ports of classic games as well. It has original content, stuff like this. A bunch of different types of games, all sold on cartridges. No internet required. To slam the cartridge and play the game. But my one complaint with the system up till now has honestly been the build quality, especially the handhelds. They feel cheap. The original Evercade was super cheap. The EXP better, but still pretty cheap feeling. Um, I like what they were doing with the game stuff, but that always bothered me a little bit, though not too much, given that the price points they're hitting are so low compared to modern, bigger brother consoles, right? So I could forgive that. But the Nexus seems to be their attempt at a more premium version of the system. It uses actual Gorilla Glass on the front panel now. Better controls. It looks like the form factor is just it's like a nicer looking physical unit with more premium materials all around. Has a bigger, better screen, 500 nits plus brightness, which is cool. Still an LCD, but still, that's a big improvement over where they were. It's got Bluetooth audio now and a headphone jack if you want. It's got some new options for multiplayer, including the option to play one cartridge, multiple systems, no internet. You can play together. They also announced the N64 version. It's not N, it's the Evercade Nexus 64, I guess, which is an N64 colored themed version of the
Oh,
Nexus.
I didn't see that.
And the reason they're doing that is because one of the first big releases here is Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie on cartridge, and it's a port. And that's actually something really exciting to me because they're not just emulating N64 stuff on here; they're actually using a port of the game. I assume done similarly to the source ports on PC. Maybe I don't know the details on that, but this is a native widescreen conversion of Banjo Kazooie and Tooie that runs on the system natively. It looks cool.
Or I wonder if it's based on I believe it's a recompilation, not a compilation for Banjo
Right.
Kazooie. If it's based on that, or if it's potentially if they still have some of the stuff that they use to build the Xbox 360 versions. But it does seem that they did release an Evercade cartridge with a lot of classic 2D Rare games. So they've got this kind of partnership with Rare, and that's really, really cool to see. I mean, I'm always just so impressed that Evercade just keeps trucking along, because I think when, you know, some of these sort of cartridge systems come out from small companies, or not just cartridge systems, any of these systems, you just look at this platform and you're like, oh, that's not going to last. I mean, you think back to the days of the Gamecom, and what was the other one, the Nokia Engage. You think back to that stuff, and you looked at that and you're like, oh, that's not going to go anywhere. But then again, I had that same attitude about Sony when it's like, oh, here's just another electronics company breaking into this business. That's not going to last. And well, it sure did. And Evercade, they are similarly defined expectations, not blowing up as big as PlayStation, obviously, but like, man, they have seemingly built a sustainable business around this. They've got enough of a audience to run a small platform with physical media.
And they even come in sweet clamshell cases that are very reminiscent of like a Genesis case. It's perfect for people that are, game collectors that want to recapture that old feeling.
Yeah,
I
Exactly.
feel like.
And it's all cheap, sold at a low cost. And,
Yeah, the cartridges are
know.
not expensive. And this, what did you say how much the Nexus is costing?
It's going to be $199
How much?
or $200.
Yeah.
$200.
Okay, so I mean,
So it's a significant jump up from where they've been, but they're still offering the lower cost models. And I think a lot of people that are into this might actually want a more premium build version, right? I didn't mention it also has analog sticks, by the way, which is something that the older models don't have.
maybe I don't know if they're using like a different kind of RAM in this like maybe a little bit immune to maybe it's like a cheaper, older type of RAM that
Or they just don't
isn't-
need as much of it.
Or I don't know, but like it is really impressive how inexpensive it is compared to almost anything else that
everything
you
else.
buy these days. One unfortunate thing, though, from my point of view, is that it doesn't seem to have a video output option. There are kind of consoleized Evercades called the VS systems that's what I tend to use, because I do tend to be a more of a video output kind of guy. But And also, there's a very small number of cartridges, I think, due to licensing reasons. Like the one that has Splatterhouse 2 and 3 is one of them, which, hey, that's a really cheap way to get Splatterhouse 2 and 3, unlike the Mega Drive versions. But they can only be played on the handheld models for some reason. So I would like to see like video output on some model that could play all versions, all cartridges, but it's a very small number. Most of their cartridges can be played on all of their systems. But yeah, I think this is exciting. I'm just really happy to see a company like Blaze Entertainment, Evercade, just trucking along with their little physical media niche, selling extraordinarily affordable physical games. Like they're like the baseline's like $30, I think now. It used to be 20. So I feel like a jump to 30, given the price of everything is not bad at all. I mean, that's what we used to pay for Game Boy games back in the day was $30. So man, what a cool little platform. I'm very excited for this.
They're up to like 700 games now on this thing, which is crazy.
Across collections, like most cartridges
Correct.
are multi-games, but still.
Yeah, it's not just most are multi-game, but still it's a lot of software. I think that's cool. So keep on trucking, guys.
It's a great way to find some unknown games also. I mean, that's how we discovered Alligator Hunt, which I think a lot of people checked out after the last episode. And you never know what you're going to find. I feel like in the future we should do an episode on just games that we found on Evercade cartridges that we had no idea about.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
That would be fantastic.
But speaking about games that are unknown, I saw one today that was announced, and I just wanted to highlight it here specifically because of a recent episode try. It's called Tokyo Wave Rush. Is it going to be good? I do not know. But they announced it, they put up the Steam page, and it is in fact a jet ski game where you race as a Zero Suit Samus.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Water here.
That's definitely Zero Suit Samus. Wow.
So,
it's
got hard to know what to make of it
as Wave Race.
Exactly. It's hard to know what to make of it so far, but I'm just happy to see somebody tackling this, right? Like I love this topic. We love these types of games, and this could be fun. Leave it up to indies to give it a shot. Again, you never know with these sort of like small indie racing games whether they'll actually like hit the mark, right? Like it's not easy to make games like this, but I'm willing to see what they can do.
Yeah, the water and reflection look insane in this game.
Yeah, it's got to be Unreal, right?
Oh, almost certainly. Like I don't think any small indie developer is going to code up an engine out of nowhere and do something like this.
Yeah, but if you're dealing with wave physics, they might be somewhat technically inclined. Who could say?
But I mean, I'm just happy to see some racing games kind of return. Like I'm actually doing a little video for DF Retro right now. It's a look back at Screamer, because a new Screamer game was just released, and I was shocked to find out it's the same developer as the 90s games. They haven't done Screamer in so long. Obviously, new employees have joined since then, but they've sort of rebooted the thing, and the new game is really cool. It's like a story-driven, like cyberpunk anime aesthetic game, where you do arcade racing. And of course, it has arcade racing modes as well, and all that beautiful graphics. It's 120 FPS on console. Super smooth. It has dual stick drifting, similar to inertial rush, or what was it called? Inertial drift. So it's a little different, but it actually works because you kind of use the right stick to lean deeper into a drift, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
And it's so it feels like you're almost like boom, like doing like this with your thumbs, like bam, when you're gonna slam around the corners, like double stick around. So it has an interesting feel, and the game is hard as nails in a way that I find pretty fun. So I don't know, it's cool. I'll have a lot more on that because I'm looking back at all the old Screamer games as well. So
it's neat to see these revivals, though. You played that Agent 64, Spies Never Die.
Yeah, I played the demo on the stream on Sunday night. Yeah, just because I was playing N64 adjacent things. I was playing that Junk Runner 64 that I guess could have been a news topic as well, which is just this kind of like open. It's more of a tech demo, but it is a game that kind of demonstrates a unique method of doing kind of large scale open world on N64. Um, but yeah, then after I was done with that, I played that Agent 64 demo because man, it really gets that golden eye vibe, not just in the look and the animations, but also in the controls. Like it feels like that perfect blend that Time Splitters 2 has of that, feel of GoldenEye with the generous auto aim and stuff like that, but it plays like like you would expect a modern shooter to feel on a controller. So man, super good.
My only complaint is that, from what I was seeing, is that it seems like the death animations need to maybe be slowed down a little bit. I always liked how intense they looked in Perfect Dark and Goldeneye, and here they just kind of fly back or like spin in the air, but they just need like the, as Tri said, I'm dying.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm dying. In Perfect Dark.
Yes.
She got me.
Oh my god, I love it, man. Oh. So good, dude. So good. Yes, Agent 64. I've been waiting for that to drop for a long time now. I've loved it since the initial demo arrived, and it's still awesome. It's shaping up to be a winner.
But yeah, it's great when people kind of go like zero in on a very specific kind of game, and you almost like don't realize that people don't make games like that anymore until you see this and you're like, oh wait, modern first person shooters, they really are very different from GoldenEye. Like, and this like hits the right notes, and oh, they don't really make wave racing games anymore. That's awesome to see that come back,
But all right, guys, I think that covers off this topic here. So what do you say we jump into the Q&A and have some fun?
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's do
All right. We'll see you on the other side. All right, gentlemen, it is time. Our first attempt at a Q&A. I'm an old hand at this from DF Direct Weekly, of course, where we do that every week, but the retro questions tend to be a little different. And there's a lot of them this time, so
Yeah.
I used to do this a lot with Audie, by the way, who should hopefully be back next time, by the way, for those curious. So let's start with this first one from Jonathan Hamilton, who says, if you could pick any game to get a demake, what would it be and what retro system would you want it on?
My gut instinct is to want to go for an original Game Boy game, because I feel like whatever you have taken this game down from, the Game Boy, just with its like four shades, has a really unique aesthetic, and I think there's like a real artistry to using the negative space in your backgrounds and stuff like that. Very sort of suggestive silhouettes of what that background could be, and I just feel like there's a real unique look to it that I really appreciate. I prefer it to Game Boy Color myself. Um, so maybe something like one of the recent Kirby platformers. Those would be right at home, kind of remade on original Game Boy, like Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Planet Robobot, things like that. Or maybe uh, Mario Mario versus Donkey Kong. That got the remake on Switch recently, but the aesthetics of that original Donkey Kong 94 are so much better. I'd love to just have that game in that style on Game Boy. I guess I didn't pick the most modern kind of games for this though.
My immediate thoughts were to think of maybe spiritual successors being ported back to the systems that they're originally on. I don't know if that's like kind of outside of the like the purview of the question, but I mean, I was looking through a list of games and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be neat if somebody was able to demake Monster Boy and put it on like the Mega Drive or Genesis?
Yeah.
Bring it home where it belongs, and then maybe do a PC Engine version with like knockoff versions of the characters in there.
Put Star Fox Zero on the Super FX.
Yeah. I without gamepad control, please proceed. I would love that. Maybe something like an HD 2D thing put on the like on the Super Nintendo. Like maybe someone ports the Octopath Traveler games to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. I mean,
that would be cool.
I was very mixed on the HD 2D style when it was first shown with that Octopath Traveler 1 demo, but I think especially by the time the finished game came out, and then later when those games started getting 4K 60 versions, I've really come around to that style, but there's still a lot of people who don't really like that style. So I think a sort of PlayStation or Saturn-esque 2D stylings would be really cool for something like that. I'm just looking at John's camera. He's like looking helplessly around his room, like, please, some game jump out at me.
I'm surrounded by so many games at this point.
I'm just looking at new games, really. So how about like if somebody ported Kena Bridge of Spirits to the N64?
Or the GameCube.
It very much
I
feels...
think that'd be a really good
I would say
GameCube or
GameCube
PS2 game.
would be
okay, yeah, that makes total sense too. But that would be very neat.
In a similar vein, Jedi, what is it? Jedi, I haven't played Survivor. What's the first one? Jedi...
Fallen Order?
Fallen Order, yeah. Like, that game gave me such GameCube vibes because it's got like the Metroid Prime style map, and I feel like that would be a game that would just feel right at home on that generation of hardware.
So one that's just random that caught on my shelf here. I would like to see entries from the Shantae series brought over to like Mega Drive or something.
That'd be very cool.
Because you mentioned Monster Boy, which of course goes back to the Wonder Boy and Monsterland kind of series, right?
Yeah.
And Shantae is kind of a spiritual thing of that. And we've seen what the original game is on Game Boy Color, but one of the, like you say, like the newest one, or like Half Genie Hero or something, and try to do a version on the Mega Drive, get the music right. That would be just kind of neat and legitimately awesome, I think.
Yeah.
I would love to hear that music going through the Yamaha chip in the Genesis.
Yeah,
exactly. I'd also like to see like a demake of some of the modern East titles to like fit more in with the original older style. Like try to bring it back in a way. It could be fun.
Even if it's just back to the Oath and Felghana and Ys Origin style.
Exactly. That would be fine. Absolutely. So, I mean, there's plenty more if I think about it, but it's a difficult topic for sure. But I like it.
Yes.
I think
let's go ahead and move on. There. We could spend a long time on that one if we're not careful. Next comes from Eric Kelly. He says, a couple of weeks ago, John was talking about that LCD that has a backlight that draws similarly to a CRT and eliminates motion blur. Any hope that a technology like that could ever let us go back to light gun games?
That LCD.
He's talking about Pulsar, which is there's LCD monitors. I've talked about this on Direct that essentially combine ultra low motion blur with VRR, and as well also support 60 hertz ultra low motion blur with variable settings that allow you to basically get near perfect motion clarity on an LCD. It's honestly insane to see it. It looks really good, but the way it works is not like it. It's only like a CRT in the way that it's sort of like it scans out from the top down to the bottom, but it doesn't actually work like a real CRT. And so light guns, as they used to work, will never work on this. But that's okay because there's a lot of modern solutions to light guns, right, that work. And so you basically have to use one of those.
Yeah, I've never tried any of those myself. I mean, because they can be kind of expensive. I'm drawing a blank on what's that one light gun called?
The Sinden light gun.
The Sinden, that's right.
And there's the Time Crisis one that just came out recently too.
Right. So there are options for this. We've seen it. We've seen plenty of options with like using LED sensors and other things around the TVs to pull this off. I don't know how they all work, but fundamentally, the way old light guns used to work is not going to work here.
Yeah.
Which is a shame,
I
but
mean,
it's understandable.
The closest thing I think you could get to that kind of experience easily today is with like in a VR game, right? You know, you can freely actually aim
I
at
agree.
things.
Yeah.
I think that's actually significantly better. It feels amazing in VR, the type of aiming you get. But those are obviously different sorts of games. Although I did love playing a new Retro Arcade Neon in VR and then loading up the Time Crisis games within the virtual arcade.
Ooh.
It's like Arcadeception, where you're like in a virtual arcade playing a
Yeah.
virtual Time Crisis machine, and it works. It's freaking awesome.
That's crazy. Yeah, a lot of VR light gun games. You know, the one that I really liked was Pistol Whip, which was a lot of fun. And
Yeah,
you can
Whip.
dual weed. You can dual weed. You can
Dual
dual wield in that.
You can do a weed if you want, man.
Well, you know,
I know how you do it.
I'm happy to.
Sorry, Eric, you're not going to get native like. I mean, even if you took like back in the day, everybody remembers when we moved to like HD CRTs. They're still CRTs. They didn't work with light guns, despite drawing the same way, right?
One of the first things I tried on mine was Duck Hunt. I mean, I'm the kind of weirdo that buys an HD CRT and the first thing I load up on is my NES over composite with Mario Brothers Duck Hunt.
Of course.
And I'm like,
That's extremely try.
Yeah, it's extremely try. And immediately I'm like, wait, why can't I play Duck Hunt?
We have a question from Dudley the Gentleman. Gutter Trash. Hello, Retro Rangers. We've seen a lot of retro content related to consoles and handhelds, but what about arcades? Is there an arcade preservation scene in any reasonable size? Have any of the retro team members invested or tried to invest in a personal arcade cabinet? Lastly, if you were able to have any 5 arcade cabinets, what would they be? That is a lot of questions in one.
Yes. Yeah.
Myself, I have dabbled in it with just a super gun, but not an actual like arcade machine. I would love it. Don't have the space. I have a few boards lying around here. Like, you know, including some weird ones like Naomi 2 and System 246, as well as stuff like Sunset Riders and a few other like older, like, you know, solid state boards, but not a ton. I know you guys have more than I do, at least in that front, or certainly Coury does.
Well, I mean, I don't have very many. The first question was about the arcade preservation scene. So that I do want to address because the MAME project, or the team behind MAME, is they're dispersed across the whole world, and they're just doing an incredible job. But the problem is, though, is that a lot of the people that really understand these arcade boards, much like CRTs, are starting to get old and die. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the coming years if they have anybody else that can pick up the mantle and carry it on. That is a subject that I thought would be a really, really interesting subject to do a documentary on, but it would just require all kinds of like worldwide traveling and stuff. But just to bring a greater attention to what they are doing, because, you know, a lot of the stuff that exists out there is because of the work that they're doing. You know, a lot of the FPGA stuff is being derived from the stuff that the MAME teams are learning.
It's super interesting seeing like what Hotego is doing with FPGA cores of arcade hardware. And, you know, I've not really been paying that much attention to the development scene on Mr. And FPGA stuff in the past few years. But the last time I looked at how Hotego operated, you know, Hotego is, you know, basically a reverse engineering business supported through Patreon. He has employees that, which is kind of crazy. I mean, you know, much like Digital Foundry, right? Like there needs to be a for some of these things that are just super cool to exist, people need to have a mechanism to say, like, I am happy this exists. I want to support its existence, right? And so it kind of blows my mind that something that you would never expect someone could have a full-time job developing arcade cores for open source distribution. Like, that is so awesome that that business model can even exist thanks to things like Patreon. So, um, I think there's definitely a lot of great stuff happening with arcade preservation, and there's I've visited some places near me. Some places that are involved is like arcade museums. I've seen them attend conventions around here. Um, and lots of people are involved with keeping these arcade machines around. There was the arcade museum in Zeligenstadt that we've visited in Germany there, John.
Oh
Who
yeah.
they preserve a lot of rare and interesting things, including stuff that people otherwise might not even know exists, like a East German arcade machine that runs some very strange games, and they also do things for utilizing multi racing cabinets, like a full um, array of linked Daytona USA's. And they're running those games in like different ways using emulation, actually. But you can play many different racing games on that. So lots of people are doing things not just to preserve the arcade experience at home on computers on Mister, but also the actual hardware, places that you can go and use the real thing, and also kind of experience some of the games in ways like that that aren't what you could do back in the day. So it's quite interesting.
In terms of having an arcade machine, I would love to. I had a space set up to put a Astro City cab down here, but that's just like not going to happen anymore. I think that they're just too out of my price range. But it would be very cool to get an Astrocade or Astro City arcade, machine down here with a Mr. Cade inside of it. It would be very cool. But I do have a few arcade boards that I got before I think that they're a lot more expensive. And there was a point when none of these were available on Mister, but now they are all available on Mister. I have Final Fight, I have Karnov, I have Street Fighter Alpha, the first Ninja Turtles, and Thunder Fox.
Yeah,
Ooh, I love Thunder Fox.
Thunder Fox is a great game. Very underappreciated.
Really, all I have are just a handful of MVS cartridges. I've got a not really consoleized, but MV1C, I think, with a super little tiny super gun on it, so I can play the very few MVS carts that I have. And I kind of fell into a Capcom CPS2. Is the B board is the one that doesn't have the game, right? The A board is, yeah. So I've got a B board that I don't have any games for. But yeah, I just kind of fell into that. But if I were to think of 5 arcade cabinets I would like to have, I mean, I didn't grow up playing arcade games, certainly not as much as Corey did, and probably not as much as John did. And I've never been entirely comfortable with joystick controls. I'm a D-pad man. I like that home controller feel. So yeah, joysticks really like just kind of fatigue my hand if I'm playing too long and I don't play well with them. So I've always gravitated toward games that have somewhat more unique input methods. Like, I like racing games in the arcade. I'm not good at them, but I like them. I like light gun games in the arcade. I mean, yeah, you can play light gun games at home, but it's still a more unusual, unique, special kind of input mechanism. So I would lean towards, if I were to pick 5 games, I would say probably Cruis'n USA, Cruis'n Exotica, House of the Dead 2, and probably like Time Crisis 2. I could go House of the Dead 2 or 3, or Time Crisis 2 or 3, and then I'd probably round that out with like just a Donkey Kong, just for historical significance, something like that. I think that's what I would go with. What about you guys?
Okay, for me, it's so hard 'cause there's so many I would want, but when I think about arcade games that I just like to play a lot, First one I would go with is a Rave Racer machine, because I Rave Racer is one of my favorite arcade racing games ever, and I love playing it. Every time I'm in Tokyo, I play it. But I also need Sega in there, so I'd probably either get a Daytona 2 or a Scud Race machine going to experience that Model 3 goodness. After which I thought about it would be fun to have something like one of the triple screen Taito games, like a Darius 2 triple screen version, just because of the novelty of that, and those are cool. Then I would love to have the dual cabinet set up for Virtual On from Sega,
Oh.
because
Yeah.
I used to beast that game in the arcade. It was so fun. I love playing Virtual On. It's such a blast.
And that's a
Lastly,
game that
though,
the
yeah,
home experience can't compare in any
no.
way.
Even with the stick controllers, it's just not like
You
sitting
got to be
in
in the
that
cockpit.
pod, get in the cockpit. Yeah, you need it. Lastly, then, I would also pick Time Crisis 2, which I think is the best light gun game ever made. I mean, Time Crisis 3 might be even a little better, but 2 is just so freaking good. And yeah, the PS2 version looks better for sure, but like the feeling of playing on a real cabinet with those real guns with the feedback, with the proper metal pedal, uh, that is something that if I just had that cabinet accessible, I would play it a lot because it's just so satisfying.
For me, I would definitely want a Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition cabinet. I mean, that's one of my favorite arcade games of all time. It kind of changed my life in many ways. I mean, if space was not an issue, I mean, I would definitely want
Space.
space. Uh, a Space Harrier machine, which is something I used to have. I had a Space Harrier upright cabinet, yeah, for a little bit. That a friend of mine, Kevin from Buffalo Pinball, was able to get for me for $100. $100. And then I couldn't move it so many times, so I ended up selling it to Arcade Legacy, a local arcade / game shop here in Cincinnati. So I would love to have that. I don't know if I can what else jumps off how about a hard driving machine? I would love hard driving. I'm a huge fan of hard driving, hard driving on the
Mm.
in the arcade,
Oh
and I
wow.
really
Okay.
really like the Genesis version, which is a game that most people hate that I love. Um, we can do an Outrun. You could just line up all kinds of super
Oh,
scaler games, and I would be
a
happy.
proper outrun machine. The moving.
Yes.
Uh, I would
Or
actually rather have an outrunners machine.
oh, interesting. Yeah, I
'Cause I
don't think I've ever
love
played that.
outrunners.
I've never played that in the arcade. I don't think. Or
Oh,
like a
dude,
Turbo
it's awesome.
Outrun. What do you think about Turbo Outrun? It's pretty good, I think.
I like it, but outrunners specifically, and I've always seen it in like a two cabinet like configuration for two player, but it's so beautiful, so fun. Like it takes that sprite scaling to the max. It's so smooth. It's really really awesome,
I think a first
man.
Ninja Turtles machine would be nice too. I have the board for it already.
That would be fun. I
Yeah.
agree. This next question, my goodness, you guys like long questions because our buddy Dan here has us covered. Let's get to it. In your opinion, who would have won the fifth console generation if Sony had not allowed Ken Kutaragi to build the PlayStation as a standalone device? The N64 was the most powerful machine of the era, but the Sega Saturn had a crucial advantage with the disk drive, enabling larger games such as Final Fantasy VII to run. Would franchises such as Tekken and Crash Bandicoot have gone to Sega or to Nintendo? Would Sega have waited longer before launching the Saturn and or reduced its 3D capabilities and thus price, given that they would have not been under pressure to compete with the PlayStation? What would developers have spent more time mastering Saturn's complex hardware? Would the N64 have been any different from what Nintendo ended up releasing, perhaps being only 32 bits? My unpopular opinion is that the PlayStation actually made things worse, as it pressured developers to embrace 3D before the technology was ready for it. Man, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I've thought about this as well. Um, and I I don't believe it would have had a significant impact on any of these things. And I'll tell you why. As we know, I think the Sega Saturn may have actually been slightly less capable based on what we know now. Um, but Sega had a plan for it, right? And Sega, more than Sony, was pushing 3D, but in arcades. That was what they were targeting. 2D was still kind of meant to be like the realm of the home, it seems, but they ended up also targeting 3D. So maybe the PlayStation existing did push developers more towards 3D, but that needed to happen at any point. And before PlayStation arrived, other consoles were trying this. The 3DO did it, the Jaguar did it. Others, like 3D was clearly where we were going, right? And it had been for years, ever since 3D arcade games started hitting. Like it was obvious that this would inevitably be where we go. And I don't think that would have changed if Sony wasn't here. And N64, I think, would have been largely the same. Like I think the N64 is a piece of hardware that was built without considering the PlayStation, right? It feels like Nintendo almost being obstinate, like Sony doesn't matter. We're building the machine we want to build the way we want to build it. Who cares about the PlayStation? Is how I feel that they probably approached building it. And they may have found more success if without the PlayStation competing, but I don't think it would have changed anything dramatically.
I mean, I think both of these systems would have found significantly more success if the PlayStation hadn't been around. And who knows, maybe even 3DO or some unknown player that never entered the market could have filled that same space. But I like that Dan says my unpopular opinion is that the PlayStation actually made things worse as it pressured developers to embrace 3D before the technology was quite ready for it. I mean, I personally really like the look of 3D PlayStation graphics, maybe more now than I did at the time, because I have nostalgia for it now. But um, I similarly kind of feel the same way about CDs. Like a lot of developers, especially Japanese developers, I would say, utilize 3D or excuse me CDs really well to where load times weren't that bad. They tended to manage that fairly well, but a lot of times they weren't managed that well. Um, I would say my unpopular opinion is that I don't think Nintendo was necessarily wrong to think that CDs weren't quite where they wanted them to be for the kinds of experiences they wanted to have on the N64. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that N64 had cartridges because it allowed a different kind of experience, a more immediate gameplay experience compared to what you could get on PlayStation or Saturn. So I think, I don't think everyone seems to think everyone should have just done CDs. I don't think it was a bad thing. Maybe it was for Nintendo, but it wasn't a bad thing for the players. I don't necessarily think for there to be a bit of differentiation there. But also what I suspect is that the 64DD would have been released worldwide and probably would have been much more widely supported, and probably could have. I don't really know what you kinds of games you could have stored on that media. I mean, it's magnetic media, right? It's kind of I think, right? It's more like a floppy disk, if I'm not mistaken.
It's like more like a zip disk.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
But I guess the problem there is it would have still been an add-on, and we know how those go traditionally.
That is true. That is true. But so it's hard to say. Like, could Final Fantasy have been a 64DD game? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it would have.
Yeah,
I think it
would
have
been a
Sega game.
Yeah, I mean, Square never had a relationship with Sega up to that point, so it would be really interesting to see what would have happened there. But obviously, as we know, Sega Saturn was very popular in Japan and it had a lot of RPGs that were only released in Japan. So Saturn absolutely could have become the RPG juggernaut, and maybe they would still be making consoles today.
Yeah, I mean, I think Final Fantasy VII and all that absolutely, totally feasible, 100% on Saturn, like no question. They could have exactly executed that vision on the Saturn. N64 though would have required a major difference. But Coury, what do you think?
I mean, I don't have a big opinion on it. I think that it would have been largely the same. I mean, like 2D games were kind of perfected in the 16-bit era. So of course they were looking to expand into 3D for the next generation. So I don't think that would have changed much.
No, not at all. I think the key there that people need to remember for those of us that were there is that most players didn't want 2D anymore, especially in the West. They wanted 3D. And there's a reason why stuff like Star Fox and Stunt Race FX running at like 8 FPS still managed to blow up on the Super NES. People were hungry, man. They wanted the 3D polygon action and they wanted it now. And it was happening in the arcades. So it wasn't like nobody knew about this stuff, right? It was big in the arcades. It was making waves. And that's what people wanted at home. And more than Sony, Nintendo really pushed 3D that generation, right? The PlayStation was still home to a lot of 2D games. N64, basically none. There's like less than 10 or something. It's ridiculous how few 2D games were ever made for the N64. It's all about 3D there.
More so with this question, I just think about, Dan's unpopular opinion saying the PlayStation actually made things worse. I mean, I don't think so. I think that there's so many experimental games on the PS1 that is way more valuable than of an experience than them trying to figure out 3D. Really felt like a lot of developers' dreams and hopes and dreams were unlocked, and they were saying it's cheap enough, and we have capable enough hardware to do this random idea that we want to do. I mean, look at like basically everything from what's their faces, Art Dink.
Art Dink, oh my god, yeah.
They're just doing like random stuff. Yeah, just doing random stuff that, it's the media that they're selling on, is cheap enough. Yeah, they can crank these out and just have fun with it.
See if it works. Yeah, it's a little trickier when you have to pay for a cartridge, but I can sympathize with his perspective that maybe 3D was a little early. Personally, I like going back to this era of 3D because it was experimental, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, it's not built the way that I'm used to playing 3D games now, but that's actually what I like about this generation. It's like, wow, they were figuring this out. This was such an interesting approach that they took to making a game work in a 3D space. And if they hadn't learned 3D in this era, would the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era have been as competent in 3D? It probably wouldn't have. I mean, it's much the same thing today where where ray tracing might be a little controversial, like, oh, there's lots of denoising artifacts. You can't fully do this, you can't fully do that on the consoles, but you have to start somewhere. You have to start building that technology, understanding how to use it, building techniques to make that technology more efficient. We might end up today with some games that, maybe have less than flattering ray tracing effects, but to get to the future where it will, just look basically perfect, you kind of have to go through that figuring out phase now. And I think it was much that way with that generation of 3D games.
Yeah. The whole point is, the friction of figuring that out is what paves the way for what comes next.
Mm-hmm. And what makes those games on the PlayStation, Saturn, and N64 still, to me, so interesting.
Our next question comes to us from Tony Escobar. He says, yes, exclamation point. Sorry, Rich is not reading this. Couldn't help myself. Been a while since I reached out, but please know, been watching you all and supporting religiously. Thank you. Are there any current retro-inspired RPGs you would recommend? I love watching you discuss shooters, platformers, etc., but I would love to hear your thoughts on this genre as well. What game is your quote-unquote great white whale that you still need to beat? And I'm still waiting on Audie's bibliography. Oh boy, that's a long one. I don't know. What do you guys think here? I mean, when you talk about current retro-themed or retro-inspired RPGs, obviously all the sort of like pseudo, what is it, the HD2D stuff, or like the Dragon Quest VII remake, that kind of stuff comes to mind. I really do. Those are good and very classic.
So I have not played it, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Is the retro themed RPG Quartet? It's on PC right now. It looks pretty good. There's Chain of Echoes also is pretty good.
Sea of Stars is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these, like, I have bought and just have been waiting for the right moment, because an RPG can be
Yeah.
somewhat time
It's a big time
consuming. But
commitment.
this isn't the most current game, but I always like to give a special shout out to I Am Setsuna because I feel like it's really underrated. I feel that uh, when it came out, people were kind of like, "Oh, it's just snow all the time. It's just piano music all the time." But I feel like really focusing on that snow aesthetic and the piano music, kind of lets the game have a unique identity. I kind of feel like when games feel like we have to have variety, you just kind of have uh the same concepts again. You've got the grass world, the ice world, and that can kind of become samey as well, that forced variety. And I think that was really interesting, and it plays like Chrono Trigger, and I thought it was a pretty cool story, and it's got fantastic music. So I highly recommend people kind of reevaluate I Am Setsuna.
Cut from that same cloth, I guess, is something like I know. Try you've played Fantasian, and
Yes,
I
yes.
mean that's
Oh,
like something that has the sensibilities. I mean that's directed by Hironobu Sakaguchi, so
well,
it
I don't think he
feels like
directed it, but he
Oh,
produced
okay.
and I think wrote the story. But
Yeah, so a lot of like the Mistwalkers games really have this feel of old, 16-bit, 32-bit RPGs
yes,
in a
yes.
in a shinier package.
When the sort of diorama concept that Fantasian has is such a logical progression of the pre-rendered backgrounds that I never would have thought of. And it's so they build these dioramas, and you can do so much with pre-rendered backgrounds because each angle, each scene, is really kind of carefully chosen and carefully crafted, and I feel like you can really make something special with that kind of presentation. And I immediately felt like, wow, I haven't played a game like this since Final Fantasy IX. Right? It really, and Sakaguchi games are so good at pacing. Like it just moves from thing to thing. Although the second half of the game, people do stumble a bit in that. You have to kind of be prepared for lots of very difficult bosses that will require kind of bespoke loadouts for your armor and abilities and stuff. But I actually found that to be pretty engaging. I think that if you want to play a game that feels like a PS1 RPG, definitely try Fantasian. And in fact, I was actually thinking when Tony here asked, "What is your great white whale that you still need to beat?" Um, I was actually thinking of Lost Odyssey. I got to disc 2 of Lost Odyssey. Kind of hit a bit of a difficulty spike, but I loved what I played up to that point, and that's definitely a uh, a major. That's always been on my mind as a major RPG that I need to beat because I love it so much from what I've played, but I can't back that up because I haven't had the full experience with the game from start to finish. But again, I think some of these Mistwalker games really prove that Sakaguchi just has such great sensibilities in terms of storytelling and in terms of just general game direction and pacing. Even if he wasn't necessarily the director on all of them, you can definitely see the similarities to the kind of pacing and storytelling that was in Final Fantasy games. And I think the dude still has it. He's still got it.
The
Mhm.
dude, the gooch has it.
The gooch.
The gooch. I love it. Yeah, man. White Whale. I mean, weirdly enough, it's an older one, but I've never actually finished any of the Lunar games. And Grandia is like arguably one of my, if not my absolute favorite Japanese style role playing game ever made. I love Grandia so much, and yet I've never finished the Lunar games. And I don't know why. Like they're different, but I feel like I really need to just buckle down and go through them. I even have the Saturn version with the MPEG card ready to go, and I played a chunk of it, but I've never not finished it.
I greatly
Yeah.
prefer Grandia to the Lunar games myself, but
I understand that, and I think I do too, based on what I've played. But I still feel like I need to play through them.
Yeah. Without those, there's no Grandia.
Right? Exactly.
For me, I mean, I don't know if I have like a great white whale when it comes to games I haven't finished. I have games that I'm scared of.
Yeah.
Okay.
At top of that list is probably the Toaplan horizontal shooter Hellfire, or Heckfire as I like to call it. There's something about that game that is just so difficult for me that it's
Wait,
always,
that's not an RPG though.
I mean,
it's not. I was just thinking.
In general.
yeah, I wasn't sure.
I thought it was just like in general.
I wasn't sure if Tony was talking about a Great White Whale RPG to still beat, but
Right.
Okay.
I decided to go along with his RPG theme for my picks anyway.
But continue, Corey, because this is actually interesting. I think I agree 100%.
Yeah, Hellfire is just a really difficult game, specifically the Genesis version.
It's a nasty game, dude.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I could not finish the second level.
Nope.
And it's always stayed in the back of my mind as being terrifying. I mean, just in terms of RPGs, I think that I'm in the midst of something that I would consider a white whale, and that's Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely very scary to me because of the size of it and how many different directions the story can go. But I started playing about 20 hours in, and I'm just letting myself relish the experience, just figuring out what I like, how to proceed, and how many different ways I can. Yeah, the gate.
I'm just playing the gate.
Yeah,
as you do.
It could be. Yeah, but when I say that, it's I'm either playing Baldur's Gate or I'm playing Gate of Thunder.
Ooh, that's it. That's perfect, dude. If you're thinking about RPGs that I'm scared of, it's got to be Shin Megami Tensei 3.
Oh, that's on my backlog too.
My sister was a nut for that game, and she can clear that, like, just absolutely makes mincemeat of it. But for me, I just bounced off it so hard. That game is so brutal, and it does not mess around. So I always love the aesthetic, but I remember trying to play it back in the day and be like, oh my goodness, I will never be able to finish this. And then she's like, oh, I like this, and just like completely learn everything about it. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm also intimidated by that. Kind of a game that gives me a similar level of intimidation. I've got the Switch, it's like actually a Switch physical copy that has like all three of the Etrian Odyssey HD trilogy on it. Those games frighten me.
All right, though, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. This one comes to us from Matt. He says, what are your top 3 best looking retro pieces of hardware? Pure aesthetics. Give me the AES, the Panasonic Q, and a white Saturn. I thought about this, and I actually have, it's tough, but my number one favorite looking game console, I'm not even kidding here, it is the original version of the Wonder Mega. I think this is one of the coolest looking machines that ever existed.
Wow.
It's even got you press the button and the tray is mechanical. It actually lifts up for you and everything.
Oh, wow.
And it's got that smooth line where you insert the Mega Drive cartridge there. Like, it's just like, it's pure aesthetic. I love this.
Yeah.
I've been wanting one of these forever, but I've given up. I just can't afford it. I can't find it. Like, I have to accept that I will never own this, but I wish I could.
That is gorgeous.
I just like to look at it, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's
is so
gorgeous. I'm actually surprised I've never seen this before, because I've seen, various weird things like the XI and whatnot. You see those around here and there. I've never seen this. Wow.
I know.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's definitely really, really cool. My favorite console visually is the combination of the Model 1 Genesis or Mega Drive and the Model 1 Sega CD. I just love that combo.
I love that combo too. I would put that up there. That's probably right below. It's just for me, the Wonder Mega is just like the top spot. But yeah, right below it, definitely Mega Drive Genesis with the original Model 1 CD. That's why I keep that in my setup. I just love it. I love how it looks.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I've always been a real fan of the 3DO FZ1. Like, I feel like it's just got this beautiful buttoned up look with that sort of like almost chrome like colors on the buttons and like the weird texture. Like the top has like a weird marble like texture to it.
With the engraving of the Panasonic on the top.
It just has this like all business like AV electronics from the
Yes.
80s, 90s kind of look to it that I'm
Mhm.
really into. And I think it's just a beautiful machine. And I feel like every other model of the 3DO looks significantly worse, including
Yeah.
the FC10, which is the Panasonic's follow up. It's way uglier. But
Without
the
that
FC1 is classy.
without the disc tray, the disc tray is a key to that, I think, too.
Yeah,
That's one of the reasons the FC10 is just not that great. Um,
exactly. And then lastly, I would say, if I was to be very specific, the Net Yarose version of the original PlayStation.
that the dark blue color, I would love to
That
have something that's just that color,
Mm.
it's a
like
that
like like a
dark,
midnight blue.
yeah. It's just a beautiful, beautiful design. There's a blue one, and then more of like a dark gray, blackish one as well. But yeah, the blue one is really awesome for sure. But I guess the key here is it's not just that color. I like those colors, but I think the original PlayStation design is like peak top loader
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
for
Oh
that,
yeah.
like from of the mainstream. Like the Wonder Mega I like more, but that's like not really like the main version of the system, right? Where the
Yeah,
PlayStation design, this was what defined it, and I think it's pure Sony from that era, and then it's just such an elegant, clean, gorgeous design that's so beautifully thought out. Like I
yeah,
absolutely adore it, and I think it holds up so well to this day. I also love the PS2 a lot as
Yeah.
well. I think they
Mhm.
just nailed it with those designs.
Yeah.
Their designs kind of got overall worse
Oh
in
yeah.
time, but
Oh yeah.
man, PlayStation 1, oh, what an
yeah.
awesome looking machine.
Yeah.
How about the Duo R or Duo RX?
I I
Eh,
d- I like those, but I actually prefer the original Duo. I think those harder lines are more
Mm.
attractive, but um I like them all.
I
They're cool.
I think the duos are okay, but actually like probably possibly my number one pick overall is just the standalone PC engine. I just
Yep.
love how
Yeah,
small it is, and I think that hue cards are the most aesthetically pleasing physical media that's ever existed, especially especially the Japanese hue cards that have usually have more elaborate art on them. It's actually one of the reasons that I'm totally okay buying loose PC Engine hue cards because the hue cards on their own are just so beautiful, such a beautiful thing to display on my shelf. So I kind of feel like the original PC Engine might be my favorite console aesthetically. And then after that, I mean, um, yeah, original PlayStation is probably up there. I have a big soft spot for the original NES design. I know a lot of people think it's kind of boxy and ugly and doesn't really hold up, but I have a deep love for it, but I don't know if I would put it at the top if I'm saying pure aesthetics. I'll tell you what I think is gorgeous is the PSP.
My favorite PSP is actually this one. The viewers can't, only those watching. It's the red version of the PSP 3000, the Carnival Red. Because if you actually look at this thing, the paint itself has like the sheen and gloss and like detail and speckle of car paint. Like it just feels like it's really premium feeling. It just the way the colors catch your eye, like it's just I think it's one of the most beautiful devices
yeah. Is that a
ever made. It's
2000 or is
so
it
awesome. This is a 3000.
3000? Okay.
I think it
Yeah.
was a Japan only model. I got it's a Japanese console for sure, but like they did
Mhm.
all these like carnival colors, but this one, the Carnival Red as it's called, was my favorite. I
Yeah.
just freaking love it.
I mean, and I normally don't go for glossy plastics. I normally kind of hate that. But on the PSP, I don't know. It just works. It works for me. I love the PSP.
Try and I did a video on our channel where we did a tier list of our favorite of a whole bunch of consoles, like
Everything we own.
everything we own. We did a tier list. So if you really want to hear us talk for
Yeah.
multiple hours about this stuff, you
Yeah.
should go check that out.
I've probably already contradicted myself
Probably.
somewhere. This is probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I like these US Super Nintendo and the Super Famicom aesthetically about equally. I I
Ah, you know,
I don't get the hate for the US Super Nintendo. I think it's totally good design.
I also agree with you, Try. Like, I do prefer the Super Famicom design overall, but when I maybe it's nostalgia speaking, but something about those weird purples and just like the unique, like, and it's specifically the clunk of the power button. Like they both have it, but like it's the size and width of that US power button. You're like, dunk. And I like hearing, seeing feedback. I've shown it to some of my Japanese friends that had never actually seen it before, and
Mm.
they see it in person, and everybody's been like, "Whoa, this is actually really cool." Like they didn't know that Kai Guy got like this kind of thing, and it
Guy
is,
guy.
it's really funny. It's cool to see these reactions, and I do think it's the weird violet purples super underrated. Plus,
Yeah.
let's be honest, the cartridges themselves are way better with their end
Mhm.
labels
Yeah.
versus the Super Famicom.
That I actually might disagree on. I because
Well, I'm saying,
the actual artwork is so much bigger on
Oh, I
Japanese and
agree with
European
that, but like
cartridges.
I just like having end labels like that. I think it's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I like them, but that would be one area where I would say I prefer the Japanese cartridges. But the console itself, I like both of them, both regions, but for different reasons. I don't get the hate for the U.S. Super Nintendo design, other than that it looks worse when it yellows than the other does. But somehow I don't have any yellow Super Nintendo. Somehow I've lucked out.
Next up, we have Dominique Noyen, who says, "Hey everyone, first of all, thanks for this podcast that is hosted to me by the masters of retro themselves. Why, thank you. The masters of retros and the man himself, of course. I'm really looking forward to listening when a new episode gets released. Keep up the good work. Thanks. My question revolves around static recompilation. What do you think of those quote unquote PC ports that got released lately? Mario 64, Banjo, Zelda 64, Legend of Dragoon, Silent Hill, potentially PS2 games even. And do you think that logic behind static recompilation will one day replace emulation? Finally, do you think that Sony and Nintendo should consider this technology for the future of their re-releases or their respective back catalogs on consoles? Thank you. We're nowhere near this like replacing emulation,
Yeah,
right? Like it's just
Mhm.
it's such a different thing. Like it just doesn't make
yeah.
sense in terms of, and also in a lot of cases doesn't benefit that much. But uh I do think I like this idea of Nintendo, Sony, and the like doing this kind of work for their classic games. Like I do think it's pretty bad to re-release older titles just as like emulated versions on their platform, especially with the quality of the emulation they often exhibit.
The
And
3D
Mhm.
games
actually,
especially.
right? That's what I mean. Yes, specifically 3D games and PlayStation 1 and 2 especially, I feel like could benefit so much from doing this properly, where you could end up with something that's like really awesome on a new machine once you get this process down. So I would like to see that, but I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I mean, for one, I don't fully understand what static recompilation means. I know that it's a process that is maybe a little more. I don't know if I should say automated, but it puts you at a easier starting point, I suppose, compared to decompilation, which is a more manual process. Do you understand much about the differences there, John?
Enough, but not enough to actually talk about it here on off the cuff. So
Yeah.
I would actually rather get something, assemble my thoughts before just diving into
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I have I built a Linux gaming PC at the beginning of this year, and so I've one of easily the favorite my favorite things I've been doing on it have been these decompilation and recompilation ports. I've probably spent more time with the decompilation ports. Um, I really enjoyed the Ship of Arcinian, Ocarina of Time. I used the Zelda 64 Reloaded texture pack, I think is what it was called, which I thought looked awesome. I liked how it looked much more than the 3DS version. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think these are really good, especially when they have like upscaled or high quality textures that respect the design and intent of the original and better higher res 2D elements. Generally speaking, if you can't um get higher quality versions of those other assets, I kind of think these games look best at their original 240p resolution. It just creates a more cohesive image. But if you are, it is a really good way to push further with these games, get insane frame rates. I mean, the whole I don't know if you can do the. I don't know if there's limitations with this with recompilation versus decompilation, but like the whole what's it called, the matrix interpolation or whatever, where you can get higher frame rate without changing the underlying game logic, which might be running at like 20 frames per second or something like that.
I agree. I think that stuff's super cool. The interpolation, and would be very beneficial in all of these cases, just to get these games up and running at much higher frame rates, especially on the consoles, where it
Yeah.
should be possible to do this at like 120 FPS
Oh,
easily on all
I
of these
mean,
machines.
even on my relatively modest Linux PC, it was crazy easy to run render Ocarina of Time at well over 4K with like 2 or 4x MSAA and 120 frames per second. I'm really
Yeah,
looking forward to the Goemon recompilation project. Uh, the Mystical Ninja starring Goemon is working excellently in that, and I'm so looking forward to when they add Goemon's Great Adventure to that, because as a 2D game, that will benefit massively from the increased frame rate. I thought it was interesting that Dominique here mentioned Legend of Dragoon. I briefly tried the decomp of that, and I think it's actually really impressive. I feel they did a good job doing like nearest neighbor for a lot of the 2D elements, but high res for other stuff. It looks good, but it also, especially being a PS1 game, it kind of breaks down a lot of the illusion when you see the game in a high resolution. Uh, some
downsampling, baby. That's what we need.
yeah, yeah. Something I thought was really funny is if you're playing at the original resolution, you can sort of see a little just slight pixel movement every few frames on characters, and it makes it look like they're breathing. Well, in high res, uh, you actually, and also at a high frame rate, you actually see every few frames their armor like shifts smoothly back and forth over their torso. And so that's how they animate it. They're like, okay, the armor is here, then the armor is here. It's here, here. And but it's smoothed over. You're running at like, high frame rate, and you see it like go like whoop. You see it like
The lack of floating point precision is the reason, and they just have to.
correct.
It's just moving between that virtual 320 by 240 pixel grid,
Correct.
but that's what
So
PGXP can solve in
yeah,
emulation, right?
yeah. And there's also some like comically undetailed birds and things in Legend of Dragoon. It's clear that the game was not meant to be seen at a resolution that high. A lot of people think higher resolution always equals better, and I strongly disagree with that. It can be done. It can be done very well. It can be done very well. You can enjoy these games at high resolution, but it takes a lot of work. And some games like Legend of Dragoon, it may just not really work that well at that resolution. But I was impressed. It runs very well, but it did convince me that yet another RPG on my backlog. I think I'll just play the original version on PlayStation. But I'm very impressed with the work they've done on it, and I'm interested to see more PS1 games done in that way.
Next up, we got from Thomas Tralla. Says, "What's your holy grail game that you would love to get physically one day?" The one that comes to mind for me right now, it remains Gimmick for Famicom, which I love Gimmick. But I missed the boat on getting it, and it's simply too expensive, and I kind of resigned to the fact that I probably will not be able to get that, and I'm certainly not able to or willing to pay the kind of money that it goes for.
What does it
So,
go for now?
oh, thousands, I think.
Really?
It's
Dang.
it's it's very expensive.
You hit a certain limit of what you're willing to pay. There's certain probably top for me is Hyperduel for the Saturn, and that's about a $600 game last time I checked. I check on it maybe about once a year, and I would love to have that, but
I'm so grateful that I got a copy of that for like $200 recently, or like a couple of years ago. That's basically it, right? Like that's how I got a Battlemania Daiginjo, as I scored a
Right.
really good deal on it where it was below market price. And if that happens, awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I ever have a chance at getting Gimmick, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Battlemania Daiginjo is very is high up there for me too. I would love to have gotten that. I think when you told me that, I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous right now.
I'm sorry, I know. I was I wanted that for years and just yeah, got lucky.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like I've already kind of taken care of what I might have considered some holy grails. I mean, if the thing is, there's so many games that I just don't expect to ever be able to afford. So like they aren't even top of mind. I'm sure I could think of something if it's like, oh yeah, that $1,000 game looks really good. But like I don't even like really store that in my memory as like a grail because I've just like written it off, right? So I when I started editing some like indie game trailers many years ago, uh I was like, well, this is like maybe the start of sort of a good thing. I'm going to treat myself with this check to some of my grails. So I got Shantae Loose Cart. I got Rondo of Blood complete. So I kind of took care of some of those high priority ones, but otherwise I typically don't spend that much. I got Kudelka a couple years ago at the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, uh, only because we had brought shirts to sell, and they were selling so well that I was like, I'm kind of feeling like I'm hungry for an expensive PlayStation game. Let me see what I find. And I saw Kudelka, and it was like an immaculate quality. I'm like, oh no, I'm buying this. But it was like $100 cheaper than what I've seen it for since then. So I feel pretty good about that. I'm sure I could think of a lot more um, that could be potential candidates, but I kind of like don't even think about those grails because they're so expensive. I guess one thing that I could say is that there are a lot of expensive PS2 horror games. And I
Yeah.
That is weird, yeah.
I love horror games on PS2. I feel like PS2 is like the exact right aesthetic and tier of hardware capability for horror because it's like it's just real enough, but also still kind of strange and indistinct enough that kind of creates this like perfect balance for making it unsettling. And at one point, I kind of had this fleeting thought of, I would like to own every PS2 horror game. And then I remembered that there's Haunting Ground, there's Kuon, there's
Rule of
Rose. Like all three of those are extraordinarily expensive. Whoops, nope, not doing that. But that would be a bit of like a dream collection goal to own every horror game for PS2. I think that would be a really fun like subset of games to own. But I
agree.
Not gonna happen.
Next up on the block, one from PS3 Inquisition. I think most people are still under the misconception that the Sega CD is all FMV games, or just Genesis games with better soundtracks. In reality, it's only a portion of the library, as I've discovered. This year, I've picked up cool titles like Dark Wizard, Dune, Dungeon Explorer, Popful Mail, and The Terminator. I was wondering what games are your favorite on Sega CD, or is Slam City with Scottie Pippen really the only game that matters?
Oh, I love the Sega CD. I got it I got it at Christmas when it released, and I don't know. I've always held it in high regard, even though it probably didn't come close to reaching its potential. I would say that Lunar the Silver Star is a game that changed my life when I played it.
Whoa.
Say what you will
Just like
about
Street Fighter.
Yeah. it's one of those games that just had such a huge impact on me that it changed my life. I had never played a game like that was written in a way that I felt that made the characters seem like real people, and it just blew me away. It is a great game. I only played Dungeon Explorer on the Sega CD a couple of years ago. I guest hosted on an episode of GameSack, and I was challenged to play that game, and I ended up really, really liking it. It's just a kind of a nice little dungeon crawler with some great, like pretty good animation and music. What else? Potful Mail is it's a fantastic game. It is super expensive to buy a legit copy now. So thankfully, if you have a Sega CD, it will play burned discs without any kind of modification. So you can do that. But Potful Mail is great. And that is a game that arguably you could say that Working Design's quirky or more jokey writing just felt appropriate in that world. Even though there's definitely some stuff in there that may have not aged very well, but it's
that's interesting. I've never played the US version of that. I've played through it in Japanese, and I also felt that the dialogue was more on the funny side overall.
Yeah.
But it's not quite, from what I've seen of the Working Designs version, it doesn't quite go that far.
Right. Yeah. I just felt like in retrospect, it's a game that the Working Design style fits. It feels more at home than it does in basically any other game that they released. And some really good, a bunch of voice acting in that game. They had to do something where they had to lower the bit rate or something like that to fit it all in there. So it's like some of the dialogue sounds, you can hear some compression artifacts in it. Terminator is a great game, great soundtrack. What else is really, really good on it? I mean, Snatcher, of course, is a timeless classic. Yeah.
Well, I mean, before you get to it, I mean, since I have so little experience with Sega CD, I should go ahead and say that Final Fight CD is my favorite game for, well, more specifically,
it's awesome on there.
Mega CD, because it didn't come out in the US, I don't think.
Wait, it did.
Did Final Fight CD come out in the US?
I'm pretty sure it did.
Okay.
In the US?
Yeah, it absolutely did.
Oh yeah.
It was
a cardboard
box.
Well,
that goes back to the previous question. I know it's so much more expensive, so I wrote it off, and I saw it for cheap in Japan and got that, and that's the version of Final Fight that I've put the most time into. So I'm actually used to the colors and the music in that version of Final Fight. I prefer the colors and music to the arcade, just because I'm used to that version now. I put a lot of time to that version. I really like that version.
Tease music, baby.
That's my favorite game on the Sega CD. I mean, it's interesting because I do perceive the PC Engine CD as being an overall better platform than the Sega CD, because there's more like quote unquote normal games on it, regular games, right? Not FMV games. I have a soft spot for FMV games, and I actually think Night Trap is pretty good. But the PC Engine CD definitely is more like, well, we've just kind of moved on to CD format games versus hue cards, for most regular games. So there's a lot of, really good, just normal platformers and adventure games and whatnot, action adventures on PC Engine CD. But the PS3 Inquisition is not wrong. There are plenty of regular games that are interesting on Sega CD as well.
Yeah.
I mean, for my money, of course, Sonic CD is a big one. Still. KO Flying Squadron is really awesome. I'm also a gigantic fan of Bari Arm, which
yeah.
I forget the US name of that.
But it has such a generic name.
Aliens.
It's Android Assault.
Android Assault: The Revenge of Bari Arm. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous shooter with awesome music. Really, really cool to play that. I also really like. Yeah, it is. They also brought Lords of Thunder to the Sega CD, and it's a pretty nice version of that game. And then you have the stuff from like Core Design, like Soulstar, Battle Core, Thunderhawk, which all push the 3D hardware on the Sega CD in really interesting ways, which I think is worthwhile. Obviously, there's some of he mentioned it as like in a pejorative, I guess, but I do think that versions of games that shipped on other consoles are often best. Like Earthworm Jim Special Edition, I think is the best version of Earthworm Jim, and it's only on Sega CD. You get the CD soundtrack, some extra levels, and it just looks and feels great. I also think Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure is best on the Sega CD. Arguably the PC version is better, but that's kind of a pain in the butt to play, and it's really good on there, of course. Plus, you got plenty of other just like interesting attempts. Like, not to say it's a great version, but The Secret of Monkey Island is on Sega CD, right? Adventures of Willie Beamish, stuff like that, that it would expose players to more like PC style games.
The Willie Beamish load times are
Yeah, it's bad. It's atrocious.
yeah.
One thing I was wondering, I never
oh,
tried it. Did you ever play NHL Hockey 94 on the
oh, of
Sega
course.
CD?
I
Like 94.
love
I haven't played the CD version.
love the music in that one. It's a great. It's better than it has any right to be, and it has it's kind of a butt rock version of the
That's
of the
awesome.
with like wailing guitars. I do want to throw a nice mention to Robo Alest, which I feel is perhaps. I mean, maybe unpopular thing to say, but I personally like it more than Musha.
That's a really good one. Another one on my list that I want to mention. I really like the two Taito games that got released on there, despite their flaws. The Ninja Warriors and Night Striker. Night Striker, of course, super pared back, but it manages to keep so much of the original arcade game on hardware that's way, 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 way less capable. And I think it moves a lot smoother than the other Mega Drive only. Like you look at Galaxy Force 2 or games like that running on the Mega Drive Genesis, they're awful feeling, right? But this actually feels suitably like Night Striker, just very pixelated, but at least you get an awesome arranged soundtrack with it. The performance is surprisingly okay. It's a cool version. And then of course the Ninja Warriors, it's a really nice version of that with an amazing arranged soundtrack. It's not the best looking game, but it's cool and it's fun to play. I do think it's worth checking out for sure. Plus there's an RPG on there called IO Lord. I don't have anything to say about it. I just love that it's called IO Lord because it's a
It's
Wolf
really
Team thing. Makes me think of going to the supermarket and like, oh, this is my aisle. Like,
yeah.
ain't
And
nobody getting in here.
as far as I know, the Sega CD is the only place to play the Out of This World Part 2, Heart of the Alien, which is
Yeah,
not great, not
it's
great,
not great.
but it's kind of interesting that it exists.
Yeah, that is interesting. Wolf Team was all over this system as well. Obviously, there was Soul Feast, which is pretty good, which is an X68000 port. There's also Devastator, which is like a weirdly little underrated platform action game. Many of their other titles less successful. I would also lastly mention, just because it's weird, is the game Switch, which I think might be called Panic in the US,
Yep. There was
which
a
is that
PS2 port of that too,
yeah,
wasn't there?
yeah, it's like a remake.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a weird point and clicky kind of game, but like you're trying to get through this bizarre world, but you basically press things and weird things happen, like really weird things happen. Like I can't even remember if this is part of it, but it's like you press an elevator button and then like a refrigerator drops and you go to the refrigerator and now you're on the moon. Like that's the kind of like sequence of events that happens in that game.
It's
So
I've never played it, but I remember seeing it in a lot of magazines and stuff, just thinking, like, what is this even about?
next one from Nolasco says, been thinking, old as I am, I've been playing games since the 80s, and as weird as it sounds, I miss the console wars. In the old days, we got different versions of games like Aladdin or Aliens 3. One version for the Mega Drive, one for the Super NES. Both great games, but it was a pure joy seeing the developers work with the hardware they had to make wonders in different ways. Today, it's all the same, if you know what I mean. A little more frame rate here, some foliage there, so on. Do you miss them days? And what is your favorite examples that you remember in your mind and heart? Thank you, DF comrades, and stay retro. One of the first ones I want to mention, Jurassic Park, I think is
Hmm.
super interesting because a lot of the Jurassic Park games are horrible, but there's some good ones. So obviously everybody knows the Genesis one that was advertised everywhere, but let's be clear. It sucks. It's a terrible game. It runs like garbage. It looks bad. It's bad. I don't like it. I think the Super Nintendo game from Ocean is a lot more fun,
I don't like it either,
but it's
though.
still flawed. It's still very flawed. But here's where it gets interesting. Amiga and Master System. So Master System has the one Japanese developed version of Jurassic Park, and it's actually a very interesting, competent side-scrolling platformer. It's a slower paced game where you're like dealing with different dinosaurs and stuff, but it actually works. And like basically you choose your level. It starts with like an action scene with tons of parallax scrolling, by the way, of you like driving the Jeep across to get to your location in like a rail shooting segment. You're like moving a cursor around, shooting at things, and then you get there and then you hop out and now you're on foot, and it's like exploratory. You're walking around, you're going indoors, shooting enemies, trying to figure out how to get through. It's actually really, really cool. It's a great game. It's on Game Gear and Master System. That's one of the best. And then Amiga is a top-down, slightly angled action game. Similar to Super NES, you got your top-down, you got your 3D sections, but it is actually a completely 100% different game compared to the Super NES one. Totally different level design. I think it's much better level design. The sprites are a little bit smaller, but it also means you have more screen real estate, so it's actually more enjoyable to play. It doesn't like the Super NES version, everything's huge and also letterbox, so it feels like there's like no room to hide. Whereas on PC or Amiga, you've kind of got this like it's more room to play in. Plus the soundtrack is just outstanding. It's so good. It's really, really impressive. Uh Not an amazing game, I would say, but I think it's actually pretty compelling and one of the better Jurassic Park games. Plus, and this is not one of the best ones, there was also stuff like Jurassic Park on the Sega CD, which we were just talking about Sega CD, which is a like almost borderline edutainment title. I saw some
Yeah.
people the other day on social media posting videos of Jeff Goldblum talking to the player, claiming it was from the Sega CD version. Uh, it was not,
The
but
CDI version, right? Or something like
uh,
that.
I maybe the 3DO version.
Maybe
I,
3DO,
I
yeah.
actually don't know, but the video quality alone is a giveaway that it couldn't have been
Yeah.
Sega CD, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's my first one. I don't know.
so I mean, we would really see this happen mainly with licensed games. It wasn't, it just like movie properties or something like that. I think of like say Hook is a good example. I think the Super Nintendo version plays better, but the Sega CD version had the music from the movie, which was great.
Well, in that version, that's really interesting because the Sega CD one was done by Core Design, right?
Mhm.
And it was a port of the Ukiyote Japanese developed Super NES game. Like the guys that did Coolie
Oh,
Skunk made it.
right.
They also did the Spawn game. They did the Sky Blazer. All those games. They did really
Because Sky
awesome
Blazer
work.
was supposed to be a sequel when they thought that it was
Right.
going to be a movie sequel.
Correct. So,
I guess the
and
other
then
area where this happened was like arcade ports and stuff beyond,
Yeah.
just licensed games. You would have sort of because there's motivation to
Rise
bring
of the
those
Robots.
games. Awesome. There's a motivation to bring those games to as wide of an audience as possible. I mean, to get more directly to Nolasco's Nolasco's question. Um, I understand where he's coming from, where he says he misses that era where everything is because it in retrospect it makes so many interesting things to talk about, but it's also hard to deny, I think, that games basically being the same across platforms, which is what we started to see mostly, I would say, like PS2, GameCube, Xbox era, where that started becoming the normal way of working on multi-platform games, where it's basically the same game. There were more interesting differences back then, of course, but that was you could see at the beginnings of like modern multi-platform development there, I think. um it makes sense that we are where we are. Like, it makes sense that people aren't making totally different versions, but it is interesting. I'm happy that that is an artifact of gaming's past, but I think overall we are in a better place now where, you know, you are expecting the same content, the same level design, the same story, the same general presentation with differences. Um, that said, though, I mean, you look at where Microsoft has ended up with their, you know, whether this was, you know, how large of a contributor to their current console situation, I don't know, but you know, they did go for. There's not really any real exclusives. It's on Xbox. It's on PC. It might even be on PlayStation. It's going to be on last gen and current gen. You know, and so I do wonder, you know, the caveat to the it's good that games are everywhere is potentially that, you know, I know it's unpopular to say it, but exclusives might be important, you know? And these games that are designed for a specific piece of hardware in mind, as was done, you know, back in the 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit days when you had a property, a licensed property or whatever, and you need to do something with it on all these different platforms to utilize that license. Well, the consoles are so different; it just makes sense to make a completely different game or a largely different game. Maybe there was some power in that, and maybe would we be better off actually today if we had like radically different versions of games on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch? I don't know. It's an interesting exercise to think about, I suppose, but
Probably be a
It
lot more
is.
work out there for people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, people could, game developers could use the work, huh? So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say whether we are in a better place than we were back then. But on the surface, it makes logical sense to say it makes sense that games are basically the same these days. But
I
who
feel
knows?
like the last gasp of that was during the 3DS era,
Mhm.
where developers often had to make
Ah,
3DS versions of games that were completely different just
true,
because
Yeah.
the
true.
hardware, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes way better, like Sonic Boom. It's a lot better on 3DS than it is
Mm.
on Wii U. But man, a couple more that I thought about from the old days that stick out to me. Batman is always a fun one, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just original Batman, the video
The
game.
video
You had
game.
NES Batman. You had Genesis, all from Sunsoft. NES, Genesis, TurboGrafx or PC
Mhm.
Engine, right?
And also Batman
All
with a gun on Game Boy.
and Game Boy, all 100% different. Like to a degree, that's just wild, and they're all mostly good. The PC Engine one, I don't hate it, but it's definitely it's iffy.
And they're all
Uh,
Sunsoft games.
they are. They're all Sunsoft. They're all different. Super weird. I love it though. And then one more, Power Slave slash Exhumed,
Mhm.
which is one that's not a licensed game from Lobotomy, where they did that PC game based on the Build engine. But they also did the Saturn PlayStation game, which is beloved and considered one of the coolest FPSs of that era. But they're completely different. The PC version is just like thematically related, but it's a completely different game. And I think it's cool that exists.
Yeah.
I got a few more here. Here's a simple one from our good friend 1040 STF,
Hey, I know
a
that
friend of the
guy.
show. Yeah, we met up with him recently in France. He says, "Hi, folks. Castlevania Bloodlines or Super Castlevania 4, and why?"
Super Castlevania 4.
I mean, I have to say Super Castlevania 4 only because I've only played the first level of Bloodlines.
That's so difficult because emotionally, I would also say Super Castlevania 4 because I just think it has such a mood and vibe that I just love. But in terms of just pure gameplay and fun, I do think Bloodlines is actually better. Like it's a really tight, awesome game. To me, Bloodlines, I mean, it's still Konami, but it feels like what if Treasure made Castlevania? You know what I
I
mean?
mean, most
Yeah.
I would argue that most Konami Genesis games feel like treasure games.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do, and maybe they were competing considering the lineage. I don't know, but they have that like very kinetic energy where it feels like anything and everything can happen at any point, and there's just lots of bits like happening within a space that makes it very fast. It's very situation rush, as I like to say. Whereas Super Castlevania 4 is like a very deliberate, slow burn. It kind of like takes you from the journey across the land up into the castle. and it's super moody and awesome.
Because Super Castlevania 4, I think, is just such a distinctive game in the series for how it has that mood, that long journey. The tone of the music is so unlike any other game in the series, I think. Although, a lot of those tunes have been used later, but it's got this mood to it. I think one of the best uses of the Super Nintendo sound chip, hands down, I think. Um,
Early Konami was on fire with the sound on
Oh
Super
my
NES.
gosh. I think
Yeah.
I think it's the best sounding early Super Nintendo game. Yeah, like, I the first time I played through it, I don't know if I appreciate it as much as I do now, but it's just one of those games that the more times I play it, the more I'm like, man, this game just has a vibe that is unlike what you usually see on the system, what you usually see in 16 bits, what you usually see in the series. And sometimes that can be bad. Like you don't want the game to feel unlike other games in the series, but in this case it works. It stands out as a very distinctive thing that is if I want to play a great Castlevania action game, I can play Bloodlines, I can play Rondo, I can play any of the NES games. But if I want the vibe of Castlevania 4, then there's only one place to get that, and that's Castlevania 4.
They never really continue with that. Like, the thing about Castlevania is it's known for its like pumping soundtrack, right? Where every track is like an anthem for the action, and it's awesome. But Castlevania 4 goes to a lot of places where songs are just very dark, slow, atmospheric, mysterious. Like, they're willing to save those anthems for specific key moments, and I feel like that gives it a huge impact. It's kind of the only other games that maybe do that occasionally might be something like Lament of Innocence on PS2, which does have a few atmospheric bits despite its flaws. So the music's not always driving in that one, but by and large, the series kind of it basically like Rondo served as like the mold for a lot of aesthetic choices, even though that wasn't a Metroidvania yet. Obviously,
But yeah,
it's
yeah,
still
presentation. I mean, they recycled I've been playing through Portrait of Ruin, replaying it via the Dominus collection recently, and I'm like, oh yep, there's another enemy that's just lifted straight from Rondo.
They
yeah.
just
Unfortunately, that lifting of Rondo sprites is what made the PlayStation Symphony of the Night basically be a 256 pixel wide game, right?
True.
Like
Which I think
they should.
it's fine,
It's
but
not.
it ruins the Saturn version.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I think they could have easily done a 320 by 224, 240 game without a problem on there. But they specifically went with 256 because they built on so many of the sprites from Rondo. So they kind of had no choice unless they wanted to like make them all super thin. So
But yeah, I would ultimately just say like Castlevania Bloodlines is, yet another outstanding, excellent Castlevania action platformer. But Super Castlevania 4 is like this cohesive experience and work of art.
and that's why I think Dracula Double X on the Super NES, whatever it's like Dracula X, I guess. What did they call that in the US? Was it Castlevania?
I think it's Dracula X, but it's called
yeah,
Vampire
just
Kiss in Europe, I think.
Europe. But that one was viewed as a disappointment, I think, because it's neither like Castlevania 4, nor can it touch actual Rondo of Blood or Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Like it's like a pale imitation of those, and it falls short of Castlevania 4, and it's
Yeah.
just not.
It's good.
It's like
but just
not a
big
bad game, but
disappointment,
it's
yeah.
nowhere near as good as any of those others.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why. All right. Next one we have from Marcus. Man, what are you doing here? Hiya, retro foundry men. When buying modern displays with a secondary consideration for retro gaming, what do you recommend? This can be in any aspect, whether it be resolution, refresh rate, panel technology, or more esoteric technologies. Obviously, Pulsar is a novel thing. How do you feel about that for older games? How do you feel about 5K for integer 720p scaling? What about PPI? The questions are numerous and the Malaysian government is coming after me, so Robert, help. I hope you have a great retro week. P.S. Have you considered doing a show on sci-fi physics? I've also been interested in the niche topic of shield bubbles in games. That's okay. That's pretty Marcus, I must say.
Yeah,
Shield bubbles.
people might not know the weird references John is making to Marcus.
Go look it up.
I mean,
Go look up Rafflegator and Marcus. Have a good time.
I think to me, people ask questions like this a lot, like, oh, what's the right size of TV for retro gaming? What's, the right this or that? And I think the answer is pretty straightforward. I don't think size matters personally. I think, whatever TV is right for your space, whatever TV is right for you to play modern games are on in the room you're playing on. I think it's the right thing for retro games. Doesn't matter how whatever distance you're comfortable with your seat being from that size of TV. I don't think retro games look inherently bad at gigantic screen sizes. I don't have a problem with that at all. So for me, just like whatever is the current OLED, they all do black frame insertion.
TVs specifically,
Yes,
not all
TV.
monitors do this.
I'm talking about TVs specifically. Yeah, I mean, if you're buying a modern LG OLED, you can do black frame insertion. So, and when we're talking retro content, it's almost always going to be 60 frames per second, unless it's 30 frames per second, or you're doing like some 75 hertz something or other. But generally we're talking 60 frames per second. So black frame insertion at 60 hertz is going to work correctly on these modern LG OLEDs. You can, with the most modern ones, you can get very bright HDR, which is extremely useful if you have an upscaler or other means of injecting HDR into that signal, because you can make it significantly brighter, which counteracts the darkening effect of not just black frame insertion, but also scanline and mask effects that you might add through your upscaler like RetroTink 4K or what have you. HDR is a huge game changer for stuff like that. And as we know, HDR is by far the best on OLED, and OLED black levels, I would argue, are better than CRT black levels because it's less impacted by ambient light. A CRT can become very gray with ambient light, and OLED remains very inky black.
Well, do keep in mind, Troy, that also that's more of a pro monitor issue or older 80s tubes. Like most of like the mid 90s and up Sony tubes, for instance, and a lot of other brands have like that tinting to them, right? Where the tubes appear quite dark, and so even in a lit room, they do look good.
It depends. Like if it's a really lit room, I would say it's still not as deep black.
It's only, I feel like it's not as deep black, but it's still pretty good unless you just literally got sunlight directly on the screen. But otherwise, they look good. Like that Sony in the bedroom upstairs, where you stayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get to see that one in action, unfortunately.
We didn't turn that on. Yeah, that one has a really nice dark like glass to it that's like smoky black.
Yeah. But regardless, Marcus isn't asking about CRTs. He's asking about modern displays.
I actually think that if he wants a smaller display, really look at those Pulsar monitors. Like the motion clarity that you get there is significantly better than black frame insertion on any of the LG OLEDs, like significantly better.
Having seen it at your house, though, it does look like
you didn't get to see 60 hertz mode. That's the thing.
Oh, I didn't get to see that. But I did get to see how clear it could be with VRR content. Right. But the caveat to that, I would say, is it looks like an LCD. Like it doesn't. Like if you didn't know that there was special technology in it, you would think that it's just like another like good for LCD monitor.
Right. That's basically how it is. It's just, if you want maximum motion clarity at maximum brightness, this is the way to go.
Yeah. But you're going to lose the black levels of OLED. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're thinking TV, I don't think you need to make a special consideration. The same choice you would make for modern games is the same choice for retro games, provided you have a way to feed those retro games in a high quality fashion, like through an upscaler or through emulation to your TV, especially with HDR, preferably with HDR, so that those effects don't darken the image so much. I just think, go with a good HDR OLED with black frame insertion.
I just
All
listen
right.
to what you guys have to say, and then I make my decisions from that.
Sounds good.
I'm still here, by the way. I'm just listening.
You don't have a lot of input on that, right?
No. I mean, I'm sitting here just saying, oh, you guys think this is pretty good? You guys are talking me into this?
Okay,
Sure.
I'll buy that.
All right, there's one more question here I want to read. This one's for Try. It comes to us from Uso de Sho, and it just says, if you had to choose between removing Nintendo 64 or the YouTube show GameSack from existence, which would you choose and why?
Why do you have to single me out for this?
Oh, this is just for Try.
Because it's an easy decision for John and I think.
Yeah.
This is so easy.
Don't do this to me. Joe is my friend.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. We're making him pick.
I mean, Joe is a very talented man. I feel like
Oh, no, here it comes.
I feel like he could land on his feet, if GameStack were wiped from existence, I think Joe would be okay. Like maybe he would, find some new talent that he really enjoys without GameStack being there, I mean, I'd have to like discover a new YouTube show to watch while I eat dinner. But I mean, if I thought this would ruin Joe, I wouldn't pick Nintendo 64, but I think Joe would be okay. He's the kind of man that relishes a fresh challenge, right? He could do something new, and maybe he'd be okay. My dinner time would be a lot less enjoyable, but man, the N64 just going away.
That would also make Joe happy, I think.
Well, of course, this being a totally not real and not going to happen decision I have to make.
That's what you think.
Makes it a totally safe thing to choose N64. But I'm sorry, Joe. I love GameSack. It's my favorite thing to watch while I eat food.
Imagine GameSack's set, the I don't know, all of his camera setup and everything just being Infinity Ward away. Like
you mean Infinity Ward? Infinity War.
Yeah, it's
snapped
like
away.
Infinity Gauntlet snapped.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I
set
didn't
is
realize
gone.
that this also means that Joe Rediford disappears from existence. And in which case, I feel very bad.
But you'd still go with N64.
No. In that case, I wouldn't. But I've predicated this decision on Joe Rediford having a good quality of life in the absence of GameStack.
But the thing is if the Nintendo 64 was erased from existence, would Try even be here on this show with us right now?
I might not be.
This opens a lot of. We should probably stop right now with this tomfoolery before it goes too far, because that's going to do it for this episode. I think that was fun. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you enjoy the Q&A session? Hopefully, we get to talk about some fun topics today, like GameSack disappearing forever.
That's not a fun topic. That's not fun.
Oh, I actually like the Sega CD topic, though. Let's go with that. Or the best looking consoles. It was fun, guys. So thank you so much for joining me on this one, as always.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks, as you do. Hopefully, with one Mr. Surly in tow. But we'll find out. We're working on it. I don't know what the next topic's going to be. Hopefully, it's a good one.
It's always a good one.
It's always a good one.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that first level one that we did recently. That was a darn good episode.
That was a good time.
That was fun. That was fun. So, thank you everyone that made it this far. We really appreciate you, and keep on watching the show, and we'll see you next time.